Well, it's a little bit cooler in here today. I got the heater going, and I'm going to be taking all the wire off of this yew here. Most likely taking off all the wire, and I'll probably be doing a little bit more bending and restyling. Some of these wires have started to cut into the branches a little bit more than I like, so it's time to cut them. The wire, not the branches. Let's get started. Oh, it's heavy. It's been raining a lot, and there's flooding around here in the Pacific Northwest. People are worried about their houses and stuff getting carried away. I actually have a friend who lives near the Cedar River, and I just saw pictures of the river that's about up to the deck of the house. So yeah, some serious rain going on. Lakes are starting to rise, the rivers are already up, and puddles all over the road. I mean, this is the Pacific Northwest, and we're kind of known for that, but still, this is a little bit more than our waterways can handle, and so, yeah, it's just really wet. But anyways, this is making this pot full of water, and it's really wet right now. All of the foliage is pretty wet, and the wiring has been on this for, I don't know, a little over a year now, and it's done a decent job pulling some of these branches and twigs into place, but that was just the initial wiring. So what I'm going to do once I get all of this wire taken off is I'm just going to restyle it again, just to make sure it's in the line that I want it to be. This is when you look at it, it has that kind of windswept look, which I don't really relate to windswept that well, so this is taking me a little time to figure out the shaping for this windswept image. But this one just seemed like a natural fit for a windswept tree. It already had the directional flow of the trunk through these long branches with foliage way at the tips. And that is one way that you can use trees that we find quite often, with foliage very far from the trunk. This one does have a decent little thick trunk, and yew does bud back really strong from even old wood. So it could potentially be a totally different design. This could have been a short chopped trunk. I could have chopped it all the way back to here, and it would have been all new buds from down here. But I really wanted something different for this image, so that's why I went with using what it had, trying to make the most out of it instead of trying to get it to be a completely different look for this this go around. Now these wires, they're kind of hard to see even in here, because yew foliage can be pretty dense, and even bugs, even as a little bit of foliage as this has down here at the branch ends, it's pretty full of yew needles. It's hard to see what I'm doing here. Plus, in the camera it might look bright enough, but that's because I have the brightness cranked up. It's dark in here. Rain clouds make it really dark. So for the rest of this, I think I'm just going to fast forward through all this boring dewiring stuff. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just clipping the wire off, because some of these branches are really delicate. This fine twig like I'm working on right here is pretty delicate, so I'm just clipping it piece by piece to get all this wire off. And I got a lot to do on this tree, so it's going to take a little bit. And I think just a little time lapse will get us through that part pretty quick. Just tedious dewiring, and then beyond that, get us back to normal speed and see where it takes us. See you in a minute. Ta-da! Anyways, I'm gonna get a little bit more light in here. I've gotten enough heat in there in the greenhouse now, so it's comfortable for me. Heaters take a lot of power, so I either get the choice of the heater or the lights. And with it being dark and cold, I started out by warming it up, and now I get to turn off the heater and turn on the lights. And I won't blow the breaker and have to go and mess with that. So I'm going to get that going. Sure, we'll talk about how to style this, how I'm going to style this. And then I guess I'll go through and do a little bit of tweaking on it. I'm kind of excited about this. This is developing a little faster than I expected it to. Now it is mostly at the tips, but we'll get that addressed. All right, this is a big tree. This is, see how big this tree is. I don't know, 32 inches wide and almost 2 feet tall, 24 inches tall. So it's a big tree, and I can do some big things with it. I'm going to start by working up from the base and maybe going through some of this deadwood and adjusting that a little bit. And then also, I think I'm going to figure out if I need to do any more strong pulls from these thick branches. I still have good attachment points here. I have screws into the trunk at really secure positions. So I may do a little bit more compaction with this. Even though I want it to kind of come out some, I still I want it to have a little bit more movement on its way out. So I was thinking about the deadwood on this and figuring I would start from the deadwood and work my way out. But looking at it and knowing how hard yew wood is, I think I'm going to do a different technique instead of the hand carving of this. I think I'm going to wait for it to dry out quite a bit. So this might be summer that I'm talking about. And take my Dremel and my rotary tools and have at those a little bit more for carving. And then maybe do some hand details on it. But for now, I'm not really super pleased with the points that are on these hand carved ones because I just kind of took them and quickly ripped them apart. I'd rather have some interesting hollows like I have here at the bottom. I have several big thick branches that I had to clear out of the way to simplify the image. And those are really good places where I can add hollows instead of these kind of funky gins. So that's going to be well down the road, summertime I think. So yeah, instead of that I'm just going to look over the image and see if I want to compact it or lengthen it or just what exactly I'm going to do to it. This time I'm going to try to do what I can without super amount of wire, that's really what I did last time. I used guy wire instead of wrapping with wire. Because this low branch, for example, it's thick. This one would take some significant wire in there to get it to do strong bends. And I don't really feel a need to make super strong bends on that. I do think I want to pull this one in a little bit so I get a little bit more in the front sort of angle here. I don't want it quite so wide because this is a little bit hard to manage at the size it's at. I'm going to start by pulling this one in to this attachment point. And to do that I'm just going to use a pretty thick piece of wire, pad this, pull that. So I'm padding the end of this with some airline tubing that's commonly used in fish tanks, aquariums, where the air would run through this line here. And it's just a little additional cushioning on top of this wire. This is a thicker wire. I think this is something like a 4 or a 3 or something like that, aluminum wire. So last time I went around this and then back down through it. I'm actually doing a similar thing, but the last time I pulled it kind of up. This time I'm going to pull it mostly in instead of up. So to do that, I'm just starting by going underneath here, twisting the ends of this wire together. And this is going to take a lot of force to move this, so I'm using the thick wire. It's twisted a decent amount, and then I'm spreading out the load of what this wire is going to do by having some of the load go on this side of the branch and having some of the load go over and through this crook. So instead of just one position where it could slip or it could really pull the bark and dig into that bark quite a bit in one position. I've got a lot of position for that now. So now if I do this right, I could pull to this screw right here and pull kind of downwards like that. And then when I get it down there, just kind of wrap it and screw it in. Let's see how that theory works. These have a little bit better shape for the handle. So these straight handle, sharp pointy ends. It's basically like pulling a weapon towards myself. I'm going to use these padded ones with better grip for this activity here. Seems a smart way to go. All right. Okay, so I'm running into issues because this is slipping all around and I'm not sure I can do this safely from that position. So, let's see, I can do it from this. Probably attached to that. It's a little further out than I want. I like it to be a little less conspicuous in here. See if I can put this against my body to keep it from slipping. Alright, I can get it kind of pulled over, but this is just me. I don't have an assistant. I've pretty much never worked with an assistant for bonsai. I think maybe I did one time when I was showing a little bit of wiring demo and we kind of moved a branch together, but all the other times it's all by myself. So the trick is, how do I make this work safely because it's so slippery? And basically what I'm doing is I'm taking my time. I'm using a very secure anchor point, but I'm having a hard time reaching that. So I could try another position for my anchor. I could, for instance, go back to this, and this would cross right over here, and it doesn't look all that great, but that could get me to a position where I can hold it while I attach another one to my actual place I want it to go. Just come to the conclusion that this is not going to be the place that I want to pull it to. I'm going to have to get a new position. And I think that new position is going to go right back here. And then that way I can just kind of pad this branch here and get it really strongly back right there. Alright, let me see, double check where I want to go. I do like right here. Let's see what the angle looks like. Okay. I'm actually going to go in to the top of this guy. So I just screwed right into the dead wood. It's near where the live wood is. And even if I went into the live wood, a small screw like this is not going to kill the tree. I went into the live wood on this one and it's healing just fine near that. And we make much larger cuts on the trees, like over here and here, where I chopped off entire thick branches, and it's healing just fine. So I'm not at all concerned with using a screw right into the tree like that. It's not going to kill it. So the position I picked there, I won't need to actually pad here and leave a damage on it. So that's pretty enough. It does its job. It's kind of hidden behind this gin. I'll still be able to carve this when I get to that point, once it dries out like I talked about. And that's why I went a little bit to the side instead of right on it. And I angled it so it goes kind of more towards the meat of this thick trunk, because I needed to support the pull on this strong branch here. Now since I went from this angle instead of over here, I could probably move this about also if I wanted to. So I could spread this wider, could spread it back, could go down. I'm feeling like, just looking at the branches and the way that they're all going kind of up. And I do like that flow that goes up. So I'm not sure that going down with that is what I want to do. I mean, it goes down and then could go back up for this branch, so that's actually pretty good. I think I am going to clean that up a little bit and have that go down and then flow up. Let's see how to do that. So if you take this branch and attach back here, and if I pull that in, that would do it. Oh man, looking at it, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bend that branch down like I thought. It's actually in a really good position. I think it can accomplish with trimming pretty much what I need to do with that. So that one's done for this branch. This other branch over here, let's see. This branch is actually in a pretty good position too, and I think I can accomplish with trimming the same thing on this one. It's going to bush out really quickly this spring, so I can trim it back to make it pretty light, and then it'll have foliage all over this area and possibly even further down. I'm not going to really use what's further down unless it's really great foliage. I'm going to use what's here on the tips and let that make the image from that point. Okay, so I'll come back in a little bit and do that part. So I'll see if I can figure out if I need to do any more movement on any of these thick branches. I'm feeling like I can do with just a few guy wires and trimming and call it good. Bonsai is a patient art, so there's really no use rushing something that you can take a little bit longer to do and be a little safer with. I'm not doing this just for demo purposes. I'm doing this to set this tree up for success. So if I was doing this as a performance art, yeah, you'd see some fancy stuff on this tree. You would see an image that just looks like, ooh, that's ready for a museum. I'm not really doing that with this one right now. I'm not putting it in a museum. I'm setting it up for beauty later on in bonsai life. So I'm just peeling a couple of the needles out of the way so I can see some of the structure of that particular part of the trunk. Just to double check and see if I want to move it about, and I don't. Alright, spinning it around to look at it, I've still got a lot of length. I decided that if I bent this much more than it already is, I would be possibly stressing this union a little bit too much, and I don't want it bent so much that I want to raffia that up and everything or tape it up, so I just went with this far just for right now, which just positions it more in this open space instead of on the side that it was. These thick branches on the top and the side ones are pretty good. And I look at these things from all the sides, so as I spin this around, I'm going to look to see if I have certain images in mind. Like if I'm walking towards the ocean and I see this tree, I'm probably coming from, let's say, the road up here, and I'm looking over the top of this tree. That looks believable, like it could be pointing out towards a certain direction. And it all looks pretty good to me right now. So I did do quite a bit of movement on this branch to get it into position. This branch is really going right into this one right here, and I'm feeling like I might want to try to pull this out a little bit. I don't have anything that's out here that I could attach it to. So what I'm going to do is just kind of bend it some and see if that's really what I want to do. And here's what I think would be pretty neat, is if I could get this one into, say, this position right about here, just pulled over about here, that would be pretty good. So in order to do that, I think I need to go underneath or into this pot somehow. So the good thing about these mica pots, they're basically like a plastic, and so I can actually screw right into this pot. I could drill a hole right into the side here and be able to attach something to it. I think that's what I'm going to do. And to get a drill bit and drill through this. Right, I got my drill, and hey, Captain Safety out there, I got my glasses. Eye protection. So here we go. I'm going to go a decent distance down, and let's see. I want it kind of right about here, so straight down from that. All right, so right through there, I could put my wire. I can tighten that real good. Figure out where I'm going to attach this to. I would normally say right at the end, and that's what I did last time. And it looks like that's what I'm doing again this time. So where did I say? Right about in here, I guess? Okay, here's my problem. Slippery, and my attachment point's not great. And also I'm looking at it, and it's still really close to the trunk right there. So I actually need to be a little further back with my screw hole. And this is okay. It's okay to make small mistakes when you're styling. Just be prepared for it. I'll go back here. So now my wire is kind of all bent up and twisty and turny. It makes it hard to feed through holes like that new hole I just did. And it also makes it where once force is applied to it, it will stretch a little bit. So basically what I do to straighten that out is I take both ends with something strong, find something like a piece of wood or a pipe or something, and do something like that, and it's fairly straight again. Let's try this again from this position. I would like to go a little further back so I'm not really in the way of everything there, so I'll try it from here this time. When I say in the way of anything, when I bend this over, these branches are going to be pointing oddly down, so I am going to have to add a little bit of wire to make that make sense again. I mean, that's not bad, but this is still pointing right up into that, and I want this to go out and up, so I got to go a little further than I expected. All right, so right now from this particular angle, it kind of merges in with this other branch down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and wire these a little bit further up if I can, so they have kind of this upward motion that a lot of this tree does. As I move up, I'll probably take some of the other parts of the growth and make it flow really well with that. Well, for now, I think this is going to do right where it is. Now let's see, I talked about moving this one into the plant a little bit also. That one's a little interesting. It goes out away from everything before it comes back in. And I wonder if that would normally happen. I have actually seen that happen where the branch will try to grow out, but everything over here will die off, and this way will be the part that grows. I think I could really accentuate the directional movement, which speaks to there being a lot of wind, by pulling this in the same direction more so that these other ones are going. So I could, for instance, pull it in, let's say that much. That really shows a lot of swoop over like that. And at some point this may become a gen anyways. This may become a large branch that shows that this side was getting beaten by the wind. So for now, let's see, where can I take this to? I think right over in this position would be pretty good. So I got a couple of places I could attach it to. I could attach it right to this, which it was before. And that would be okay, but remember I want to carve this year. I have a screw way up here, which was for pulling this in a different position. And that's a little further than I want to go. I want to pull this kind of down. So I think I'm going to add in a screw right here. Okay, so where was I talking? Right here? That looks good. So where I put this, it's pretty hidden. You can't really notice it too much from where everything else is. And I was going to mess with this to make it a little bit more of a gin, so I don't really want this pokey gin thing there. I think when I get down to it, this will be a little bit different, but let's see what I can do with that anyways. I also have this branch that died off to the side. I'm not sure why this particular branch died on the side, but it does speak to the direction of the wind that I was talking about, where things that are on this side, foliage that's on this side, doesn't really last very well. Can't handle the wind, so it gets stripped of bark because the foliage is not there for the bark to be needed. It's not that the wind is so strong that it literally rips the bark off the tree. That would do much more damage to this tree than just what I'm showing here. It also has died down just a little bit here, so this is definitely a believable little gin and shari I'm creating here. I've been using those terms, gin and shari, because that's what people use commonly, but I don't usually call it that. I usually just say deadwood. The reason why I do that is because I don't speak other languages. I know some words and some phrases from other languages, but I just speak my native tongue, which is English as spoken by Americans here in the colonies. And we don't use fancy words a lot of times. And we do tend to use some words that we don't entirely understand. Like, I know gin and shari refers to gin being a dead branch, shari being a dead portion of the trunk. There's also tenjin and all these other names for this. I didn't study in Japan, so I don't really relate to those words that strongly. I just kind of do what I know, I use what I know, and I make the most out of it. And the main thing is that I have fun doing bonsai. I do this a lot for me. I originally thought it would be fun to do this as a job at some point, and I do, to be honest, have some customers that buy my work, and it is fun to put some of my work out there into the world. But I have a hard time getting rid of certain trees that I really like. This one's actually becoming one of those, so that's why this one's going a little bit slower from yard shrub that this was last year into a bonsai. Yeah, believe it or not, this was in my yard last spring. This was actually just outside my fence by the road, and the reason why it's kind of smashed like that is because the previous winter we had some good snow, and the little hill that it was planted on was covered a lot with snow, and the neighborhood kids were using it to sled down, and so a lot of these top branches were bent and broken over. So it used to look a little different on the top than that. So this is actually styled by the neighborhood kids during a snow day quite a bit. And like I said, I'm making the most out of it. So that was either something that I could have chosen to get really upset about, or I could have just made a bonsai that has a directional flow, which, the kids on the sleds help me to find that image. Things work out the way they're supposed to, I find. A lot of things in my life that go really well, sometimes they're mixed in with things that I have to learn a lot from. So I have found that if I just look for the best and make the most out of the situations, I'm so much happier. I enjoy what I'm doing, and it gives me the chance to really share what I do in a way that I think people understand the same things. Everyone goes through their own struggles. So this tree has gone through its own struggles, maybe in a way that's different than it's being portrayed here from the wind, but it did go through its own struggle of, it was intended to be a bonsai about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and it wasn't working for me. I wasn't getting the image that I wanted from it, so I thought, whatever, I'm planting it out on the hillside in my yard. And it sat there and thought about its life for, over a decade. And then I got to see it a lot more, and situations happened where I was able to really start maximizing what is in this material. So yeah, that's just one example of how bonsai can really make your life an interesting challenge and something that you can get a lot of gratitude out of. Anyways, let's keep going on the styling here. Where was I anyways? Okay, so I kind of did that thick piece. It's not super pretty right now, but hey, that's okay. I'm just kind of ripping it so I can work on this other part too. I'm just kind of peeling the outer portions of this in mostly a random manner. I kind of go and get the top kind of cleaned out and then rip the bottom out. That seems to just be a good pattern for making gins work for me. And then I try to avoid having the tip be a super pencil point. It's hard to see there, but these tips, like on this gin and this gin, they're really pointy, and that's not quite what I'm going for, so I don't want this to look like that either. So in fact, I'm gonna take that down just a little bit further. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Now I need to figure out, I was going to attach to this screw here, so how do I get this over there? And now I think I have a pretty good position here with this little gin keeping the wire from falling off it as it goes over. I am going to pat it, twist it together, and then let's see how I can pull this through here. Sometimes a pull, sometimes a push. This one is going to be, I guess, a push. It is sticking into the rest of everything pretty well. I think I can get some of these things to flow upward the way I want. This is kind of in place so I can make a foliage mass around in here. This one, I'm liking where that is right now. I think I'm ready to start trimming this. First I'm going to clean out some of these other screws I don't need anymore. I think I got them all. Alright, now it may not look that different from the way it was, but basically what I want to do is get these back kind of into positions where I had them. This one in particular sprang back pretty strongly. I'm almost certain that this one is going to be a deadwood feature down the road. So with that in mind, I'm going to try to get this foliage mass to thicken up and grow in a place right in here so it'll be useful down the line. I'm just looking around to see if I need to really wire much anywhere. Some of these branches on the this side where the wind is blowing from, I'm just going to shorten those and leave the other ones with a longer look. This one right here, this is only one I really have to wire. Alright, so let's see what I need. I need to clean it first. And when I say clean it, I just mean I'm removing some of the little growths that I don't really think I'm going to need because they're going to be in the way of everything else. Okay, so for this branch I got a decent wire that's going to be thick enough to do this one for sure, and just thick enough to do this other one. And I want to twist this branch just a little bit around like that. So I got to come from under it in that same direction of the twist, which is something like this. And I only need to do the initial part of it, so that's about enough for that. And then come around here so I get a good anchor on this one, and that actually puts the twist on this one right where I want it as well. What I'm trying not to do is trap these needles too much underneath this wire, because that just has kind of a weird, odd look for smashed down needles on it. Okay, so I have the wire on. This is probably going to be the only wire that I put on this tree that's actually wrapping the branches. I do want to do most of the rest of this through pruning if I can. Down the road I may take and do some really detailed stuff on it, but for right now I'm just going to let it mostly fill out. Alright, so this one I wanted to go up and twist. So I got the up. I'm also going, when I twist it, I'm going a little bit down at the tip. Okay, and now this other one's going to twist the opposite way and end up right around in here somewhere. Now this one's a little harder to twist, so I'm going to go ahead and use my leverage device, which is the pliers here. You can trim little pieces at a time like I'm doing, but once you've trimmed it, it takes a while for it to grow back. So I'm just kind of going slow, making little bits of trimming here as I go. And then taking a look at it. Looking at multiple angles and then trying to get everything to work the way I want. Okay, that's pretty good. While I'm on this side of the tree, I'm going to go ahead and do this other branch that comes out right here, this one. And it's a pretty simple one. All I'm going to do is basically, looks like I just have to clean it up and show some of the structure a little better. You know, I'm remembering that I'm not doing anything super fancy with this. I'm just kind of going a good structure for the new growth that's going to be coming out pretty soon. It's actually got some pretty decent buds all along the foliage covered branches right now. I'm not trying to go super flat on the bottoms because that does tend to have a little bit too structured of a look, but there are some parts where these lower growing needles really poke and just look really odd from where they're at. So those ones I'll go through and just kind of simplify a little bit. Alright, so there we go. That's good enough for me for now. I may actually repot this year. Ooh, I really want to get this one into a better pot. I probably should leave it in this pot for the year, which will allow it to grow really strong, and that's what I'm focused on. This pot is not horrid. And also, one thing about this pot is I just drilled a hole in it for this, and I need this on there for at least a year. For it to set in place, so not a good time for me to repot it. It is nice and sturdy in there though. Let me show you one of my favorite angles on this tree though. This one's not bad. This is the way that I thought it showed the wind the most. Well, like this, I thought that showed the wind quite a bit. But my favorite is about right here. Now, looking at it from where I am, this has a lot coming out front. In 3D, it looks very much different than you're seeing on your screen. I just love the way this twists and turns as it kind of flows up into the air, being chased by the wind. Yeah, this was a pretty cool yew. I got one other yew I've been working on, and then this one. They're my only two yews that I have. And they are pretty fun. If you keep them healthy, they'll respond with a lot of nice green growth. This will be really glorious when spring hits and all that lime green pops out on it. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching my channel here on YouTube. I really appreciate you hanging out with me and enjoying the journey. I hope this inspires you to go and try something new with your bonsai, or even learn how to do a new style like this windswept style. It's kind of a windswept. Works for me. Anyways, thank you for watching.